Thank you, beautiful people, for your T's and P's. And welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits, a show where we discuss current events and social issues from a skeptical humanist perspective. This show is a product of the ACA, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. So, before we get into the show details, I would like to take a moment to just introduce all of the hosts that we have tonight. So, to my right, we have our guest host, who I'm very excited about. He's my buddy on the outside, too. So, I'm so pleased to be the one to introduce Teo el Ateo from Nuestra Experiencia Atea.
Hi, Laura.
Teo, tell us a little about yourself.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. I am Teo el Ateo. As you can guess by the name and the show, Nuestra Experiencia Atea, the idea is to have a show in Spanish. Basically, it's a show where I explain some stuff. Sometimes I interview some people like you, and sometimes I just translate stuff that the ACA has made. So I got some permission. I could translate them, and they are in my show. So being here is so amazing. So thank you so much. I'm extremely excited about this.
I have been super excited to have you on the show as well. It has been too long that we've been talking about it, and I'm glad we are finally able to make it happen. So if you don't mind, could you take like another quick minute and just expand on what you mean when you say that you translate the ACA shows into Spanish? So which shows do you do specifically?
Well, mostly I've been taking some some calls from the ACA.
Mm-hmm.
I had one where Shannon was talking about how the brain works, so therefore it's impossible for a soul to exist. I have also taken some one where Dr. Darrell Ray was on the show explaining his book about what's the name? God Sex? No, I don't remember, but he talked about how religion impacts. Sorry, I'm nervous. How religion how religion is going to affect everything in life. I'm sure I have. I remember a call from where Jenna was participating. Oh, I remember now. The slavery trinity. I'm sure you're familiar with that episode when three people at the same time, one after the other, called Matt Dillahunty in order to defend slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Biblical slavery.
Yeah. Biblical
righteous, holy,
so
godly.
Translated that.
So I've been trying to go through for the spicy stuff, and I have been translating them. And yeah, that's it. I have been working on some extra stuff. I have been interviewing people from the ACA. I interviewed you, Jenna, and V. LaBianca for one special episode about the new horsemen. That it was something that some people decided out there. And the book was The God Virus. That's the book.
There we go.
Thank you.
Links in the description.
Yes.
Links in the description. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I say this in my channel in the short description, but there are a lot of things about atheism in English. The reason why I found a community is because I speak English, but in Spanish-speaking countries, atheists are still he's going through a phase, or they are not taken seriously, and in a lot of places. As I will tell you later on the episode, they are discriminated. So there isn't any, or I'm not aware of any program like the shows that you have at the ACA, where people talk openly about atheism, where they discuss with other people about religion, why people believe, why they don't believe. And I really want to bring that here because that doesn't exist. And there is a huge population, a huge number of people who really have no idea that atheists are a group of people, what atheists think, why people don't believe. And that's why I'm trying to bring all that content that you have over there in English to Espanol, to the Spanish, where it doesn't exist.
I think it's so awesome what you're doing, and I'm so supportive of it. So all you listeners out there, even if you're not Spanish speakers, if you could check out Nuestra Experiencia Atea, which links in the description below, if you could just share it and share it around, and who knows, maybe you have Spanish-speaking friends, or maybe your friends can share with friends, and let's get his channel out there, because I think what he's doing is really important. Okay, so moving on to his right, we have Miss Cynthia, who I've been on with several times now. So Cynthia, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Cynthia. Hi, guys.
Hello.
And we're all pretty familiar with Miss Cynthia.
Yeah, I've been on for a few times, so yeah, I'm here and I'm very excited to be on with Teo. Welcome to the Nonprofits, and thank you for accepting the invitation to talk about stuff.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And then to Cynthia's right, we have our very own Johnny, who, if you don't know who he is, you probably shouldn't be watching this show. But just in case you're new here, Johnny, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm here now and again, here and there, hither and yon, across the surface of the earth. I made the actual ask of Mateo, so I want to take credit for that. I reached out and I talked to him on the video conferencing technology, and I'm so happy that he's here.
I was going to mention that.
Well, you didn't though, but you didn't.
Yeah,
so I have to toot my own horn. But
I didn't even mention, you are very lucky to have here the first Spanish atheist VTuber.
We're very lucky.
That in my presentation.
Yeah.
No, I really like that you're doing what you're doing, and so the folks at home know, Mateo, I'm putting him on the record, he invited me to be on his show, so now he has to have me on his show because I just told you that he invited me on the show.
And now it's out in the universe.
Now it's out there.
Yes, so keep your eyes out for Johnny's episode.
I'm excited.
I know the episodes that he's done with me, we've also done in English as well as Spanish, so I've been able to post them to my site. So that is something I also really appreciate, is that he does have content in both English and Spanish, so check it out.
And they're very good. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
Well, I think
it's going to make me blush. I
think it's very important, even if it weren't good, which it is. It's important that it's out there because, like you said, Mateo, I mean, if these shows don't exist, if that community is in the closet in some way, then folks like you are out there bringing it into the sunlight and showing people that this isn't a crazy way of living. Right?
Yeah.
So, yes, normalizing atheism,
yeah.
and not just in the English-speaking countries. Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Word to your mother.
Okay, indeed. So before we delve into our articles, just a few more items of business. If you have not already done so, ladies and gentlemen, please click that subscribe button and click on the like below. And set the notification bell on so that you're always notified when we have new episodes, which premiere every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Time. Really exciting. And I know we've been repeating this week after week, but it's still exciting. We are over 8,000 subscribers. And once we hit 10,000 subscribers, we can start doing fundraisers along with the other high subscriber ACA channels. So if you haven't subscribed yet, or you know somebody who hasn't subscribed yet, you can help us get there by doing so right now. So you can share the link to our channel with all your friends, your family members, your coworkers, even that neighbor guy you don't really like. Anyone and everyone. Let's get the word out there so that we can start helping with those fundraisers. The ACA has a new YouTube channel. So check out the Atheist Experience Network, which is a one-stop shop for all ACA shows, which are in podcast form. So subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts to listen to episodes of everything from the Nonprofits to the Atheist Experience to Truth Wanted and all of the other ACA shows. You will not miss a single episode. You can also join our fan social media outlets. You can find most of the Nonprofits hosts on the Atheist community of Discord. We're there on and off throughout the week, so pop in and say hi to us at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/nonprofitslive. Lastly, if you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a nonprofit patron at patron.com/thenonprofits. You can support the ACA also by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the Atheist Community of Austin as the beneficiary. So if you find yourself already shopping on Amazon.com, adding us on Smile will just help us out, and we really appreciate that. Lastly, we value your feedback. So tell us what you think, what you like, what you don't like in the comments below, or you can email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. So, all business, a little bit more here, sorry. As with all of our shows, I forgot to say this, and we should probably say this often throughout the show. Links to all of today's topics and the news that we discuss are all available in the description below. So, feel free to pause the video, read the material for yourself, and don't just take our words for it. Make sure, though, that you come back and hear the rest of our discussion. So, having said that, our first article is very particular to Teo and what he was saying with the Spanish-speaking community. So, Teo, I would be so appreciative if you would introduce this first article.
Oh yeah. Well, the first article, it's a little bit old, my fault, but it was about the Catholic on the decline in Latin America, because the Catholic Church is going through a process where atheists are more and more every day. I remember that when I came out of religion, I did live I'm the only atheist out there. None of my classmates or whatever were atheists, so my two best friends were extremely religious. One was a Catholic Boy Scout leader. The other one was part of the Evangelical Church, and he was not going to become a pastor, but he was very active in the community. So you can imagine my best friends, and I was the atheist one. But yeah, luckily that is changing, but for several reasons. For example, I don't know, maybe you heard about this, but the Pope, I think it was 2019, no, it must have been 2014, I think it was. He went to South America and he started to defend some pedophiles that the church was moving around. He blamed the victims, accused them of slander, and it was terrible. It was awful. So a lot of people.
Papa Francisco? Papa Francisco did that?
Papa don't preach.
Papa
I'm in trouble deep did that, and I believe he did that in 2018.
He probably doesn't even know about Madonna.
Well,
he knows about the Madonna. But
he knows about that.
Not Madonna, Madonna.
Tune into more important Madonnas, Papa Francisco. Sorry, Mateo.
There are more articles I have to read. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry.
Please.
It's a song from the 80s. Never mind.
It's a thing.
So recently, I don't know if you heard about the news in Argentina where they approved legal abortion.
They've been trying to do that for such a long time.
The Catholic Church was opposing it so much, and there were huge groups of people protesting against those laws that it was terrible. And it was the church itself who sent them to protest against these laws. So as you see, the church is still they have it has a lot of power even in government. I think I'm going to quote something about Mexico, where some evangelical priests were telling people not to vote for a specific candidate because of the ideas that they had. So the church is powerful enough to have a power in politics nowadays. And a lot of people from new generations are realizing that. That's why slowly, surely, but very slowly, there are more and more atheists nowadays. And there is an important precedent that I want to mention. I don't remember when it was, but you can Google Ecuador Got Talent. Do you believe in God? This is a video about Carolina Peña. She was a contestant on Ecuador, that country, in the Latin American version of Americans Got Talent. And she was asked if she believed in God. And when she said that no, she was attacked, and I think she was disqualified because of that. They said, no, you don't have talent, but it was after they asked her if she believed in God. They didn't give her a second chance. Wow. So, atheists are still rejected. There are countries that are more kind of advanced where they are just ignored, or they think, oh, it's just a phase. But in other places, they are still pretty much rejected by society. I'm going to quote even a study that shows that in Puerto Rico, atheist people perceive themselves as marginated from society. They are rejected by this society because, and this is from 2018, so a couple of years ago, because they are a minority, and a minority that is rejected and sometimes hated. I have some guys from El Salvador, and they say that in their country, it's extremely religious, and it's easier to say that you're gay, even though you're despised by religion, than to say that you're an atheist, because that means, oh, you hate God, and all the stuff that comes with it.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So that leads into perfectly into this article because even though the numbers are low, the article gives us a little bit of a chance for hope of like the growing numbers of atheism in South America. So Teo, did you want to tell us a little bit about what the article said in terms of the growth of atheism in South America?
Oh yeah, I love this article because it showed how people was starting to live religions more and more every day. And you know what? I think that there is something that they don't mention in this article, and it's that the numbers are even bigger because a lot of Latin America, a lot of people are Catholics, and Catholics normally they are baptized when they are babies, and when they grow up, they go to church like twice in their life, and that's it. So I am Catholic. If you go and check my name, I'm still on the Catholic list because I haven't done the thing of removing yourself from their books. So I trust me, I'm checking how to do that. It's a kind of complicated process. I
never thought of doing that.
Yeah, we should all do it because whenever church say, you know what, we have this many people in our church. The numbers are really, really low compared to those numbers because a lot of people like me, including me, we count as Catholic, but I am an atheist and we don't follow the religion. So according to this, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to agree with you and say my mom had to do the same thing with the Mormon Church. It took her a long time to get her name off the books, and they were trying to include our names too, even though we were born after she became an atheist. So I was just going to agree with you. It's.
I'm still considered a member of of the church that I grew up in. I'm like, I don't know how, but okay. I mean, like, I still talk to the pastor, father, priest, minister,
man of the cloth,
man of the cloth, woman, camera, person, TV.
But that brings up a good point when you talk about reporting of different religious numbers is like what the churches are reporting versus who actually attends or who actually believes. It could be two completely different numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. They are totally different. And I have to say, I'm happy that less and less people are religious nowadays. And it's because of things like what we mentioned, the thing of the Pope defending pedophiles. There have been a lot of evangelical pastors who have been found with sorry, my Spanish is interfering and I totally forgot the name for mover fondos. I totally forgot about it. Economical reasons that they steal money and they they move money around.
Well, it's a bit of laundry.
Stealing money.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a flim-flam industry anyway, isn't it? You're selling no product.
Right.
Oh, and many.
You're literally
I have a whole
selling
I have a whole episode where they receive a lot of money from drug dealers and other illegal activities because, it's interesting, but criminals are very religious. They get holy protection, quotation mark.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have a little bit of eye in the sky helping you out.
Right, just in case, right?
Your wheelman.
Covering your bases a little bit.
Yeah. Is that almost like criminal insurance? Almost like the State Farm of, or the Geico of the criminal? I don't know. Yeah.
I was when I was doing research on this, I was seeing, I believe it was in that article talking about the Latin American countries and who is most religious, who is least religious, and I pulled out a graph that's in the notes. You can all see it. Those who describe their religion as unaffiliated, either no particular religion, atheist, or agnostic, and Uruguay is at 37%, with that percentage of the population as identifying as no particular atheist or agnostic. Then we've got Dominican Republic at 18%, significant drop. So I wonder what's in the water in Uruguay, right? Aside from it being a nice country, I've been there. U.S. Hispanics generally 18%, Chile 16%, El Salvador 12%, Argentina is at 11%, Honduras 10%, Costa Rica 9%, Brazil 8%, Puerto Rico 8%, and then down from there, and there's a few more. But really surprising that Uruguay is so much.
And I do want to clarify that number just a little bit. So it's not that 37% of Uruguay is atheist. It's that of all the atheists in South America, 37% of them are from Uruguay, right? So even if like the highest number within a single country is, say, I'm just gonna throw this out there, like say 10% at the highest.
Okay.
Of all those atheists in all those South American countries, 37% of them are in Uruguay.
I also think it's important to preface that this particular, because we're dealing with Pew Research, right? So this is self-reporting.
Right.
So we don't necessarily, so just from the ones that they actually surveyed, this is how, this is the poll responses that they got. So the numbers of those who are identifying as not particularly religious or agnostic or even atheists may be higher, but one of the things that I've noticed, and this is just from, you know, even coming from a culture of people who is highly religious, is that and even as you kind of preface this, Teo, about, you know, people being ostracized in some kind of way because they express that they don't believe in God, or that they don't necessarily, you know, affiliate themselves with, like, you know, a certain denomination. And because it's almost like, well, if you're this, you know, like, for instance, you know, since I'm African American, you know, since you're African American, like, you know, you got to be Christian, right? And because even like with the same organization, the Pew Research did released some numbers of those who were polled that were African American concerning religious affiliation, and they found that about 79% of the ones that they polled were identified as Christian. Now, they really didn't get into, I didn't really get into the crux about denomination, but oftentimes that's usually more tied into, like, you know, more charismatic denominations. Sometimes a lot of Baptists. I believe that the first African American church was the AME church, and then, you know, and then of course, like, we do have, like, you know, some Catholic and then like mainline Protestants. But I know that, like, atheism, even amongst African Americans that reported, is less than 1%. And oftentimes it's kind of like, well, if you say that you're atheist, you're a pariah. What, do you worship the devil? Like, no, I don't even believe in the devil. Like, I don't believe in.
I don't believe in any of it. They're all myths.
I don't believe in any of it.
I don't believe in sin. I don't believe in Adam and Eve and the apple. Like, it's all not
made
true.
Up.
Yeah.
None of it's true.
But I mean, but I think that it's like really important to, you know, to kind of, you know, get a grasp of how religion is so integral to culture.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
And
like what Teo said, where he said the same thing, where from the popular perspective, if you're an atheist, you hate God, right? Like, that's sort of like the perspective that he encounters down there. So yeah, it's so ingrained in the culture that to go against it, it's like there's sort of these interesting justifications that have to happen.
Oh, you made me remember. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead,
yes?
please.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, I just remember a short anecdote. When I was a teenager and I was trying to start, you know, thinking about if I really believed or not, I used to believe, okay, so you are a believer, you are an agnostic, then you're an atheist. So, oh no, I'm not sure I'm an agnostic. So whenever people ask me, I would say, oh, I'm an agnostic. Yeah. And I remember one person who I told, I think I'm an agnostic. And he told me, like, oh yeah, that word has been cursed by the Bible. And I was like,
cursed by the Bible?
Cursed. Yeah, you read the Bible and they hate that. And now I think, did you read your Bible, sir? That word doesn't exist over there.
That's exactly what they did not do.
Yeah, but it's like, no, you're cursed by the Bible now. God hate you because you're an agnostic. And it's not in the Bible, sir.
I'm curious. Go ahead, Bonnie.
No, go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm curious if you asked them if they understood what the word agnostic meant, because to me it's perceived as an even weaker position than calling yourself an atheist, right? So I'm curious.
I lived in a very religious place, and I was a very religious person before this moment. So I was just starting to learn. I didn't know anything about anything. So
well,
I think I didn't even know what an agnostic was.
There's an idea, I think, that you're a fence sitter if you're an agnostic. In that theist, atheist, agnostic dynamic that a lot of folks are rejecting because it's an inaccurate paradigm. But I wanted to say I found another article, Pew Research. I put it in my notes, looking at Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. They looked at the whole world, but they covered Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina in 2020, July 20th, 2020. The global God divide, and that's going to be in the description. Talking about belief in God is necessary to be moral. 84% of Brazilians said yes. Mexico, that number was down to 55%. Think that it's the belief in God is necessary to be moral. And same thing with Argentina. There was a tie with countries with higher GDP are less likely to tie belief to morality. Although I know I think Argentina is going through really hard times economically right now. That apparently is not the case. That doesn't stick to their views on morality. But those countries with more education are less likely to see belief in God as necessary. And with less education being less than completion of secondary education or less than secondary education. So Brazil, people with less education, 91% believe that God is necessary. People with more education, only 77% believe that God is necessary. In Mexico, less education, 67% believe that God is necessary. With more education, 36%, big jump. And then in Argentina, it's 59 and 26. As far as the importance of God, Brazil, 84% think God is important. 10% say God is not important. Mexico, 52-31, and Argentina, 46-20. And then there's a whole lot of stuff here. I found, I know we only got a few minutes. Can I go through this last bit? Because I think it's a lot of information.
Yeah, why don't we use your information to just kind of wrap this up? Yeah,
sure.
Move on.
All right. So I found this on bccatholic.ca. And this is the decline of Catholicism in Latin America. Latin America is currently home to 39% of the world's 1.3 billion faithful, I guess Catholic, but they'll no longer be a majority Catholic by 2030. The percentage of Latin Americans that are identified as Catholic has dropped by 8 points since old Papa Francisco was elected to the papacy. Chile is no longer majority Catholic. It was 75% Catholic in 1995, 56% Catholic in 2013, and 45% Catholic in 2017. So something's going on down there in Honduras.
Trends happening.
Uruguay, is the most secularized nation, 38% Catholic. Guatemala, 43%. El Salvador, 40%. Honduras, 37%. Nicaragua, 40%. That's a big chunk of Latin America that's no longer majority Catholic. However, Pentecostalism has been able to claim some of that, with some 70% of all Latin American Protestants. And that survey has jumped the population of nuns from 8% all the way up to 17%. So numbers are changing. Things are changing. I think we talked about it before. It may be church scandals. It may be the ravages of colonialism. I mean, it's called Latin America because why?
Right.
The Latin
church? World.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's changing. And I think people are just shaking off the chains more and more.
Yeah. The problem is, may I go, Laura? Sorry.
Oh yeah. Just really, go ahead.
Yeah. About what you say, the problem is that, yes, Latin America is considered a very Catholic area. But as you said, Protestants, they are taking the place that the Catholic Church has. And I consider them a little bit more extreme than the Catholic Church. And also, Jehovah's Witnesses, they are growing over there a lot. I know because I was a Catholic, then I decided that I was trying to find a better religion because I didn't believe. I never practiced Catholicism much, so I went with Jehovah's Witnesses, and I also was curious about evangelical. So I went through the three religions. I didn't go through Mormonism because they arrived later when I was starting to leave religion. But they have been arriving to different countries. They always arrive with this idea of, hey, we want to help you. Can we help you in something? And I've heard people saying that, hey, Mormons are going to teach me English. I just have to go and stay at their church and they will teach me English.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Strings attached.
So
Right.
yeah, that's a good point. Is we talked a lot about the Catholic side, not so much about the Protestant side. And we do have to move on from this one because we have 3 other really in-depth articles that we're going to get into as well. But I think that's a good thing to note before we move on, is that the change and the trends in South America aren't just from Catholicism to atheism, right? It's from Catholicism to other forms of Christianity. But the smaller trend that's sort of eking in there is that atheism is on the rise. So that, just to kind of clarify that difference, that atheism is growing, but the majority of Catholics who are leaving Catholicism are leaving for other Protestant religions. So with that, we need to move on to our next 3 articles. We'll kind of have Cynthia give a broad overview of all 3 of them, and then we'll get into each one and kind of get into all of them.
Okay.
Cynthia, you're awesome.
Yay! Oh, thank you. I think this is a looking back.
Looking back.
Okay, so these particular this particular portion of looking back is some history based on what's going on at this particular moment in time that I'm trying to get to with my notes. My bad, people. So at this particular segment, like, we're going to be talking about Juneteenth, the Tulsa Race Massacre, or the Tulsa Massacre, and Loving versus Texas. And the reason why we're kind of going over all of this is because Juneteenth is like right around the corner. Actually, it will be the day before this particular show airs. And the Tulsa Race Massacre happened, I believe, on May the 30th in 1921, and this marks the 100th anniversary. And Loving versus Texas, I believe that particular Supreme Court decision also happened in June as well. Am I correct, Johnny? I believe I'm correct. I believe I'm correct.
And I have to think.
And Johnny's muted, but yeah, we're gonna go with your.
Yeah, we're just gonna go that I'm correct.
Yeah.
So
and
I was just not making sounds. What are you talking about? I was just going.
He was just lip syncing.
Yeah. Right.
I think
Sorry,
that's right.
but I have to ask, what is Juneteenth? What is that all about?
I'm glad that you asked, Teo.
Perfect lead-in.
I'll be more than happy to tell you what is Juneteenth. So,
Awesome.
Yes, let's just get into it. So what is Juneteenth? So Juneteenth, also known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day, is a holiday celebrating the emancipation of those who were enslaved in the United States. So basically what happened was the Union General, Gordon Granger, proclaiming freedom from slavery in Texas, commemorates it on its anniversary date of the June 19th, 1865, with the announcement of General Order Number 3. So just to give a little background, there was a document called the Emancipation Proclamation, which was an executive order that was introduced in September 22nd, 1862.
Wait, that wasn't June 19th? The Emancipation Proclamation wasn't June 19th?
It was not. It was not.
Right.
But wait, September to June, that's a lot of time.
It is a lot of time. It is a lot of time.
Okay, but go ahead. I'm listening.
Well, so like
there must be some perfectly reasonable explanation for this.
Of course.
There is. Just you wait.
You pins and needles, people. Pins and needles.
Pins and needles.
Okay? Pins and needles. Okay. Story time, children. Let's go with this allegory. Okay. So September 22nd, 1862. Emancipation Proclamation was introduced, and it was effective on January 1st, 1863. Basically, this was an executive order by President Lincoln at the time that declared all enslaved people in the Union and the Confederate states freed. Okay. Now, mark that this was in effect in 1863. The word did not get to all of the slaves at the same time. Okay. So what ended up happening was, and the reason why it took so long is because there was time differences and actually trying to get into Texas specifically, which was a further away state that was an enslavement state.
Wait,
Yeah.
did the Confederate heroes get in the way of emancipation? Is that what you're suggesting, Cynthia McDonald?
Well, I know that history does not like to say that, Johnny Angel. Okay.
P.
Johnny
Don't
P.
forget the P.
Angel. Yes.
Legally
exactly.
distinct from Johnny Angel, the song.
That is correct. And the hat.
But you were
shows
saying
it.
history doesn't like saying it.
Yeah.
But
However, that actually there was blockades that was actually trying to keep from the word getting out that enslaved people were freed. Okay, so what ended up happening on June 19th, 1865, Union Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take command of more than 2,000 federal troops. He came to the Department of Texas to enforce the emancipation of its slaves and oversaw a peaceful transition of power. And he went throughout Galveston, marching through different areas, reading General Order Number 3 to proclaim that all slaves were free. And this marks that was the last holding area that people who did not know that they were free. So this actually, since it happened on June 19th, the word June 19th elided into Juneteenth. And it has been actually celebrated by different African Americans in the United States, since a year after that particular emancipation happened.
Now, I have another question of clarification regarding the freedom of slavery or of slaves. Did that proclamation result in the instant freeing of all the slaves in Texas?
No.
Right. So it's important to note that even though June 19th is very significant, it did not mean that on that day all the slaves in Texas were free. It still took time.
Were there Texas patriots who tried to stop the steal of their human property?
Why, yes, Johnny P. Angel. This actually did happen, and there were also, like I mentioned previously, those who were siding with the Confederates were, for lack of a better term, the barriers. Okay, like, you're not gonna let my slaves go, and General Gordon Granger's like, oh yes, we will, and they were like, oh no, you aren't. No, oh yes, we will. Yes, we will. So it was still a very much so a struggle to actually free slaves. Matter of fact, we didn't even see even further down the line where the 5 civilized tribes who actually owned slaves did not let their slaves go right away either when they had that particular proclamation heard. So it was definitely a struggle, and it had to really take the ratification of the 13th Amendment enforced, mind you, before we can actually say that, oh yeah, slavery is no longer a thing, except if you're a prisoner. But that's a whole nother show.
That word enforced is really, really, really significant, because there's a difference between putting a law on the books and enforcing a law. And so I really want to give this some historical significance, because I'm going to blow everybody's mind here right now. But at the time, they didn't have the internet, right? So things traveled as fast as the person on horse or on train traveled, and it got to the ears of the people who were physically present to hear it. And whether or not it spread from person to person really depended on whether or not the person wanted to share that information. And so I think it's really significant to highlight how difficult every time a law was passed or a proclamation like this happened, how slow it was to trickle out to everybody, but how even slower it was to start enforcing it and to start making sure that that the people were actually following through with it. Because if a landowner could get away with still having slaves, they got away with still having slaves.
That's right. That's very, very true, Laura. And
yeah,
you just hit the nail on the head.
When people talk, I hear this. People say things. They say, sir, why do we need to have enforcement of the laws? property is theft, and why can't we all just agree to live in peace and harmony? Because there are fucking piece of shit assholes out there that will try to use force and the indifference of other people to get whatever the hell they want out of life.
Mhm.
And so I guess I can't stress this enough. It's important that we have just laws and the equitable enforcement of those laws,
Yeah.
because there are always going to be assholes who will try to do the wrong thing.
This is
And
true.
this is not a radical statement, I know, but I'm tired of hearing it from hippy dippy people who just want to
We just think we're all going to just do the right thing all the time.
Yeah, why don't we just do
Yeah.
the right thing? And why is everyone so obsessed with money? And why can't you just get your parents to pay your bills? And why can't you just fuck off and realize that there's nasty shit in the world? And so eternal vigilance, the price of liberty, and all that stuff, you need to be involved in government. You need to be involved in the enforcement and in the enactment of just laws to create a just society, because what you don't want is individuals. And this is not, I'm sorry, I just hearing about that. And then hearing about Confederate heroes and the garbage that they were pulling during this time, actually, since the second they existed until the current days.
Right.
In beautiful Austin, Texas, there is a monument dedicated to the Confederate heroes. There is a holiday to the Confederate heroes. Yes. We don't have Nazi Sympathizer Day. We don't have British Loyalists Day.
No.
But we do have Confederate Heroes Day, because some people have ancestors who were, I'm sorry, on the wrong side of history.
Oh dear.
I
So,
Mateo.
Teo, please, yeah, wait.
Yeah, I just had, this is your history, so I'm out of there. So I had to check a little bit about that. And it hits me really hard that you say that even nowadays, because I searching on the internet, I hope this link is on the description as well. I read about this writer from Harvard, Joshua Benton, who is explaining how nowadays there is a textbook in Louisiana, which is a book trying to talk about Confederate heroes and erasing the Black history. And I love this new concept that I read, whitewashing slavery.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you talk about these poor slave owners who have only 120 slaves, and they lost everything because these evil slaves went free and they lost everything.
They only had 100
Yeah,
human beings.
And here's the thing, Teo, just to your point concerning like these like ahistorical books that have been taught in school, Louisiana is not the only one. There's a bunch of different former slave states, mostly, that actually have a very skewed version of what happened during this time period. I believe there was another textbook that was floating around specifically that was taught or used in South Carolina that talked about how slaves were happy people and their masters handled them with care, and slavery also brought civilization to the savages of those former Africans.
And there was folk dancing.
Brought them what? Christianity.
Christianity.
Civilization. Yeah.
I read Stamped from the Beginning.
Yes.
And I put it up on Facebook. If anyone tunes into the Johnny P. Angel Facebook page, you're not going to get much out of it. Just, if you got something in your wall that's public and you don't look like an alt-right neo-Nazi MRA person, I'll probably add you. If you got nothing, I won't add you, not because I think you're one of those people, but I don't want to be attached to any baddies. But I will put up the books that I'm reading, okay? And occasionally maybe a picture of my dog, but or something silly. But yeah, Stamped from the Beginning. Go out there and read it, because it's a bit long.
Yeah.
But U.S. history and the shit-stain, shit-heel things that we've done is pretty long. And a kaleidoscope of shit. It's amazing how detailed fractal shittery is what people have done in the name of racism, race realism, class warfare, using race as a way to control white people and non-African people, using the boogeyman of the African person.
Right.
It's amazing. Check that book out. It's going to make you feel like garbage, but
it's a good perspective to have.
Yeah,
it is.
Open your eyes to what happens.
And it's such a well-researched book. Ibram X. Kendi is the author of that book. I have that book as well. Yeah. It's for me, it's difficult to get through.
Yeah.
I have read some chapters and had to put it down for a very long time because he's very descriptive in retelling the events and of all these different historical portions, specifically through the transatlantic slave trade and what happened here in the United States, and it's so real and it's so in your face, and to the point it's kind of hard to swallow, even though I had of course ancestors that were enslaved in the United States, but because you were kind of retelling their stories, you have to grasp that, and it is difficult to get through. But I do also recommend reading it, especially for those who want to get a better understanding of how we got here.
Mm-hmm. Can I add something to that? Oh,
yeah, no, perfect. Laura, I was going to segue, but add.
Oh, what's that?
What? I was muted. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna add this.
Yes.
I read that book and I read White Trash, 400 Years of, I don't know what it's called, also in the Facebook, also in the description. I read them back to back. And what was interesting is it was the same time period, the same kind of arguments. One was against people of African descent. One was against, they called some people garbage people, waste people. And they played both sides against each other. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you might wonder, some of you folks out there in YouTube land might wonder, well, this is the nonprofits. I want to watch 4 atheists dunk on a bunch of stupid theist stuff. I'll tell you what, we've said this before. I'll fucking say it again. All right. These are human issues. Right. And when something happens to one group of humans, although you might not want to believe it, it's happening to the human race as a whole.
Right.
There's an episode of Star Trek where Captain Picard is captured by the Cardassians. Do you remember this one? There are 4 lights. And the Cardassian, evil man has his child, his granddaughter, whatever, his child there. Mm-hmm. Humans don't love their children the way we Cardassians do. And then little child goes away. And Picard, because he's the best, says, when you teach a child to devalue some other life, they're going to devalue your life too. There's no way to externalize this devaluation. And so what people were doing to African American people, they're doing to all the rest of us too. So it's relevant to us. If we consider ourselves humanist, we need to give more than 2 shits about this. And so that's why we're talking about it today.
Well, and I think it's especially important to talk about it as atheists, to show that compassion and love for other people doesn't just come from a religion or religious teachings, that it's something that can be within all of us. So I think it's especially relevant for us to discuss this stuff.
And it's historical.
I know. So
it's historical.
Teo, go ahead.
Historical, relevant, relevant? Yeah, yes. Whatever. Relevante en español. It's relevant, and it keeps I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. I would say it is related to religion. Religion poisons everything. Slavery was supported by religion. In Panama recently, like a couple of months ago, natives, I'm not going to say Indian, but native people were murdered in the name of the Christian religion. And it keeps happening nowadays. And I think that discrimination is also based on religion, this idea of a superior race, of a chosen people, and all of that. And everybody else, they are the people that God sent you to kill or to teach them and convert into my people, and that's it. But I think this is closely related to religion, and everything that we are going to be talking about and what happened with Black people over there. I have to say, sometimes it scares me when I, as a non-USA inhabitant, know more about the evil things that the USA has done than people from the USA. And yes, I'm saying people from the USA because, sorry guys, Latin American
We're not the only
here.
Americans.
We are all
Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah.
Todos somos
Teo is
americanos.
American too. You just got to get over it.
So
North
what do you
America's-
call a U.S. American? What are we? No one ever has a good answer for it. What do you call Americans, U.S. Americans?
You mean in Spanish or people from the over there?
When you were talking about somebody from Los Estados Unidos, for example, what do you call?
Estadounidense.
Say again.
Sorry. Yeah, somebody from USA. Estadounidense. Yeah, American could be as well.
American.
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 Okay, so Teo brought up a good point, and not to get us off the subject that got us off the subject, but I want to kind of get us back on track a little bit. And Teo brought up a really good point about the whitewashing of American history and how he, as someone from South America, has a completely different outlook and knows more about our history. So Cynthia, there was two more articles, but the next article specifically deals with the Tulsa Massacre. So that is another really great example of sort of like the blowing over of some of the atrocities that happened. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
Certainly. And I just like to also just like preface before we go into like a little bit of the history concerning Tulsa. I didn't know about this until I became an adult.
Neither did I.
Me neither.
I was well into my adulthood before I even found out about this. So basically, 2021 actually marks the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa, Oklahoma Greenwood District Massacre, or as I like to call it, domestic terrorism.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Tulsa was a growing and prosperous city with more than 100,000 people at the time, but Tulsa was highly segregated. And most of the city's 10,000 Black residents actually lived in an area called Greenwood, which included a thriving business district, and it was also sometimes referred to as Black Wall Street. So in 1921, on May 30th, a young Black teenager named Dick Rowland entered an elevator at a Drexel building on South Main. And at some point, the young white elevator operator named Sarah Page screamed. Rowland fled the scene. The police were called, and the next morning they arrested Rowland. And basically, he was accused of trying to attempt to attack her or rape her specifically. It became a front page story in the Tulsa Tribune that afternoon and reported that that police actually arrested Rowland for sexual assaulting Page. And as evening fell, an angry white mob gathered outside the courthouse, and they were demanding for Rowland to be handed over. However, Sheriff Willard McCullough refused, and his men barricaded the top floor to protect the Black teenager. Around 9 p.m., a group of about 25 armed Black men, including World War I veterans, went to the courthouse to help guard Rowland because they were afraid that his life was going to be in danger for good reason. But as the sheriff turned them away, some of the white mob tried unsuccessfully to break into the National Guard armory nearby. Now, over the next several hours, a group of white Tulsans, who some were deputized actually by the sheriff's office and other city officials, committed numerous acts of violence against Black people, which included burning down homes and also torching businesses and also bombing homes with airplanes. As dawn broke, about 1,000 of the white citizens poured into Greenwood District, looting about 1,256 homes and over 215 businesses over 35 city blocks. And in 1997, an official state government commission was created to investigate the Tulsa massacre. And in 2001, the report came back that concluded that between 100 to 300 people were killed and more than 8,000 people were made homeless over that 18-hour period. Matter of fact, the ones who were actually made homeless were put into internment camps. And they could not, and they were stayed there for at least about 4 to 5 months. You could not leave unless a white person actually signed you out. There was recently a a hearing that was done on the Capitol here in the United States for the subcommittee of the House Judiciary, where the 3 surviving members of the former Greenwood District actually testified in front of that particular subcommittee of Congress, giving the accounts that they remember from that particular time period. And it is, and also can say that even though that there was an attempt of redress or what have you, the redress was a statue, medals, and a small scholarship fund for underprivileged low income people. But those businesses were never rebuilt. The people were never able to reclaim their homes, and the people nor their descendants were able to receive any type of redress or repair that came from that particular horrible day. But it's not even to mention that was one of the that happened, but that's not the only massacre that happened in the United States. But since this is around this particular time period of the 100th anniversary, that's why we commemorate it.
Yeah, go ahead and type in mass racial violence in the United States on Wikipedia, for example. I was talking about this with a friend of mine earlier today, because he had only recently heard about the Tulsa Race Massacre. I'll be honest, I can't remember when I first heard about it, but it was featured as a major plot device in the Watchmen television show.
That's correct.
And I thought it was very interesting because it brings it. I had really low hopes for that series. And then I'm like, oh my God, they're dealing with this. And then I started researching more about the history of it, and found out a whole bunch, and how effective the perpetrators and the establishment was at covering this. Yeah. Because they say history is written by the victors, right? But if you go to the mass racial violence in the United States, and this is just Wikipedia, so there's going to be some naysayers, some people in the fan here that don't believe that this is an issue, but oh my God, like it's black versus white, Irish versus German, German versus whatever. But what I'm seeing here, anti-immigrant versus anti-Catholic, indigenous folks, all this stuff. What I see is a cancer of racial struggle in this country that has never been dealt with. This country that boasts of being the land of the free and the home of the brave, and these tumors of racism and race conflict going on here, and yet there's still, even to this day, we heard about the 1619 Project. You heard about the 1776 Project, put up by the Trumpsters, right? Who would try to. It's not even like they're afraid. We're gonna have an episode about critical race theory. All right, at some point we're gonna have one, and we're gonna have to air it, right? And maybe that's just what we do, that episode, because I'm tired of these dipshit politicians not even knowing what it means, right? Claiming that it's teaching people that if you're white, you're evil. It's not that. I don't feel evil. I mean, I am, but not for that reason. It's for personal decisions that I've made. But this is stuff that we have to know about, because if we don't know about it, it's still in our collective body. This awful evil. Go ahead, Laura. Sorry.
So we are by nature not like just white people, but people. We are by nature tribal. And when we talk about all the different, like when you said like German versus Irish versus like black versus white versus Catholic, non-Catholic, whatever, it's not just that like X group is racist or X group is the problem. It's that we as humans, by our very nature, are very tribalistic, and these massacres and these injustices and these murders are all sort of an example of what happens when tribalism is allowed to go unchecked, right? When we're allowed to just build stronger and stronger and stronger beliefs that this in group is the only group or the right group, versus having some of that broken down. And not to say tribalism is bad, but like look what happens with sports teams, where people get so ingrained into the sports team that they love that they'll attack people from the other sports teams. Right. I know that happens with soccer, right? Specifically.
Well, I think
it's bad.
Oh,
I think that basically it's as far as like, when it comes to different people and different groups, we all have like our identities that brings us to, who we are, right? Like, I identify as this, you identify as that. And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's not even anything wrong with being proud of the group that you're part of. I'm very proud to be African American, and no one and as everyone should be proud of to be what they are. But the problem comes is that with this big eyes and little u type thing, like the superior race, and this is like what we saw in Nazi Germany. This is what we saw in here in the United States. This is even what we saw, like, if you guys ever get a chance to read Stand from the Beginning, it talks about like some of these particular sensibilities. And even when Teo, I believe you brought up the Bible, when it comes to like the superior people, the chosen people, right? And these particular sensibilities are then adopted and then carried out to be oppressive to other groups. So that's what really is where the reckoning needs to come. It has to come to the point where we can still be proud and celebrate our differences, but at the same time knowing that because we are all still human, that no one is better or bigger or proper or more whatever than the other.
Totally agree. And guys, I have to take everything that you have said. Johnny mentioned Trump. I have to talk about that guy. You mentioned about this thing that you didn't know about the massacre. Sorry, is Tulsa massacre? Tulsa,
Yeah,
right?
massacres. Yeah.
Oh, Tulsa massacre.
Tulsa massacre.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what Laura mentioned about distinctions. Okay, I have a lot to say. Let me do it really quickly. There is a reason why you didn't know about that. And I'm going to talk about whitewashing because I'm sure you know Bryce Cornell. He's also a person of color and he's an atheist. And for a sheer coincidence, I was talking with him about Juneteenth. And I read, oh,
June.
look at this. Here, June?
Juneteenth.
I keep messing up.
Yeah.
Shame on me.
We knew what you meant. We knew what you meant.
That celebration, Juneteenth, June. Okay. So I read, oh, look, in here it says today is the most popular annual celebration of emancipation from slavery in the United States. And he said, that's a meaningless statement because it's the only celebration of emancipation. And a lot of people don't even know about that. So there are reasons why people don't know about this type of celebrations. As I told you, I have talked with, okay, I'm going to say Americans for now, people from the USA who don't really know about slavery. We talk about the books that are happening in Louisiana. And yeah, I mentioned the whitewashing thing because it feels like I don't want to say white people because it is happening also in Latin America and we are not white. But people are trying to erase Black history from history, for real. Black history should be just history. But do you remember when Trump said, we want people like people from Norway and not from the shithole countries? Yeah, shithole countries meant South America, Africa.
Not white.
Right. Yeah, not white countries.
Yeah.
They wanted Sweden.
Those people. They want white people like people from Norway. And you know what? In the Cono Sur, I should say that in Spanish. Cono Sur, that is like the south cone. So, it involves some countries such as Peru, not Peru, Uruguay, Paraguay, Brazil, Argentina, and Chile, if I'm not mistaken. But especially in Chile and Argentina, there were a lot of slaves. This was back at the colony. Imagine the biggest city had like 50,000 inhabitants, and they brought like 70,000 Black slaves. So those people obviously stayed there, and they do not exist in history. You look at the books, and there's no mention of Black slavery.
You know, it isn't. And you know what I had heard that I think on the Argentine 100 peso bill, they had the president on there until fairly recently. That this guy, what he did is he was responsible for the slaughter of the native Argentines. And how did he go and do it? He sent the slaves to go do it. So they just mutually killed each other. And then when the countryside was absent, of any native Argentines, Native Americans who had come down the land bridge and their ancestors and all that stuff, and they had killed off all of their African slaves, then all of the European descended people could go down and populate the area.
Argentina, they have a very strong accent because they were populated mostly by Italian people. They look very white. So white people. Actually, there is kind of a joke that people from other countries call Argentinians black people because they believe that they are white. And it was pretty hilarious when this actress from this chess playing a series on Netflix, she's Argentinian, and she was mentioned. Yeah, she was mentioned like the first first colored woman who won was it an Oscar, an Emmy, one of those prizes. But she's very white, but she's still colored because she's Argentinian.
I believe that's the Queen's Gambit. Is that correct?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. She ain't black.
I know, but
are you the gatekeeper for black, Cynthia?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Now you know, people. Now you know.
Just me, only
terrible,
me.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to sort of, one of the things that I thought of as I was reading these articles, and I kind of put it in the notes as well, was we sort of have this like passing nod to Black history. Like we celebrate like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and we have MLK Day and all that other stuff and like the civil rights movement. But then we don't teach our kids about what it was really like to own a slave and what happened when slavery ended and how long it took. And we don't teach them about the Tulsa Massacre and all the other massacres that happened. And so it kind of cheapens that holiday for me just a little bit, because to me it's like that it becomes more of like a passing nod, sort of like a, oh yeah, there was the civil rights thing and they did a really good job and good for them, right? But then it completely minimizes all the suffering and the struggles and the struggles that people are still going through today.
I gotta agree with that. And because like and I know that we were going to like kind of talk about this a bit from our notes, but the Senate just passed yesterday on Tuesday, people. I know this is recorded, but on Tuesday, the Senate just passed a bill to recognize Juneteenth as a national holiday. At first I was shocked because I was like, the Senate, like Mitch McConnell's Senate, like no, for real, like hold on, you punking me, right? Right. But the thing about it is that and this is like the latest holiday that has been passed, and the last one that was passed federally was Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. So and that was like a 40-year expanse that happened. But the thing about it is that until we really deal with the shamefulness of what has happened in America, right? And until we actually start telling accurate history, a lot of this is just kind of like you said, it's just like a passing. It's benign neglect, and it's kind of like, okay, Black people, we gave you Juneteenth. Okay, you should be happy now. And I say, yes, but okay, yes, you recognized Juneteenth. I mean, you didn't really give it; you just recognized it now.
I know it's been around for kind of a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around for a minute, folks. But even with recognizing it, it doesn't really become something of proper distinction until you actually recognize the full history. Like I say this a lot, specifically here in the United States, Black history is American history. It's ingrained in the fabric of what the United States is. The United States would not have been an economic world power without slavery. Let's just keep it a buck. It just would not have, and so that's why you had such a fight to hold on to that institution, and but at the same time, as much as like people want to, change the narrative of what slavery was and all the things that happened after slavery, we still have to deal with this reckoning of what.
Be honest with ourselves
and be honest. It's kind of like AA. You gotta first recognize you have a problem. You
want to have a clean house, you got to clean out the closet too.
Exactly, right. But you gotta recognize that the shit is in there. It's in the closet. Keep it in the closet. You got to bring it out. So and this is exactly what America definitely needs to do. And instead of like, just trying to come up with like a whole bunch of different ideas of what happened in the past that led us here, and also think that, oh well, if we're saying things like white supremacy or racism or anything like that, that we're just like, we're just being snowflakes, or we just want to whine and complain.
Throwing terms around.
Or we're just throwing terms, just because we're woke left people or whatever the hell that means. I mean, like, no, this is real. And it was because of power structures and because of policies and things of that nature that has happened in the past is still affecting us today, and it has to be dealt with, or should be dealt with.
I've got a lot to say. Let me go through it if I can. All right. Talking about Juneteenth as a holiday. All right. First of all, this was almost passed before, but Ron Johnson, I believe, of Wisconsin, was against it because he said he's all in favor of it, right? But it was too costly to give government employees an additional day off, and he suggested that the government remove a federal holiday in exchange for Juneteenth. That's crap, because what are you going to take away? Martin Luther King Day, New Year's Day, Washington's birthday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, which is now Indigenous Peoples Day in a lot of places. Thank you very much. Yeah, finally.
Yeah.
Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, or Inauguration Day. This is crazy. I mean, no, he knows full well. You're not going to take away freaking Memorial Day to put this on here. It belongs there. Also, I think it's almost a better Independence Day than Independence Day, because Independence Day, without it, we wouldn't have a country in a large part. But without this day, it would be a sham Independence Day, wouldn't it? When you've got a significant portion of people who aren't free.
Yeah, I was going to say independence for who? So as a nation, we won independence, but how many of our actual people? I know that at the time that many people, including women, were not considered citizens. Right. But how many people living on this continent weren't actually independent?
I mean, we ought to celebrate the day that women got suffrage. But here's what Frederick Douglass. He's a fantastic guy. He's doing some tremendous things. I hear people.
Yeah, Freddie D.
Don't we love Freddie D? People, we love him. He's doing a tremendous job. And he said this in his famous declaration to the people of Rochester. This has been going around lately. This quote, and it's a good one because Freddie D has good things to say. Had good things to say. What? He said this on July 5th, 1852. He was asked to speak on Independence Day, or at least the day after. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty, an unholy license, your national greatness, a swelling vanity. So here's the thing, 1776 Project. Okay, because I know you're watching. All right. Don't try to deny the past. Try to live up to the ideals that your slave owning and slave abusing founders laid out in beautiful writing. Make it happen. Say, you know what? We had something good, but we can make something better. And you're not going to get there by bullshitting your way for the rest of history. Make progressive steps to make it better. Step by step by step. All right. I got to say that. I want to say something else, if I might. Okay. About the Tulsa Massacre. Anytime different marginalized groups try to make progress, there's always a force of people who are threatened by it that have to put the smack down, right? They have to stop it from happening. And somebody in the article said this, that article that I read. I'll try to find where it came from. I lost it. Didn't put the site. Always cite your sources, people. Quote, if I play 400 rounds of Monopoly with you and I have to play and give you every dime I made, and for 50 years, every time that I played, if you didn't like what I did, you got to burn it like they did in Tulsa, how can you win? How can you win? You can't win. The game is fixed. Right? We don't like to believe that that's what we were doing as a country, as a society for a long time, but we just were tough nuts. Your grandpa was a Nazi. Okay. That doesn't mean you have Nazi pride. It means you're like, my grandpa was a fucking Nazi. Thank goodness I'm not a Nazi.
And you move on and you acknowledge it. Yeah.
My grandpa wasn't a Nazi, for the record, but,
as far as you know,
he was an American, and he was in one of the bunkers though. The American Race. Cody Johnson explains racial inequality using Mario Kart. Has anyone seen this one?
No, but I'm interested.
Even more news, or some more news. He used to be on crack.com. He put out a video using racial inequality in terms of Mario Kart. The first, like, I don't know, 3/4 of the game, he's got like Mario can't go, Mario can't go, Mario can't go. And then finally at the very end, Mario can go. Oh, he didn't win. I guess he just didn't have competitive skills in Mario Kart racing. That link's going to be in the description. I personally like that one.
Yeah, the
It's a good illustration.
the whole pulling up yourself by your own bootstraps. I believe Dr. King said that it is a cruel jest to tell a man to pull himself by his own bootstraps when he is a bootless man.
Oh yeah, it's terrible over there. Sorry guys, you have this culture where you think, and a lot of people are copying that in here. Like Americans tell you this dream of the American dream. The idea that you're poor, you arrive to the country, and you're going to be rich if you work hard. And they never realized all the struggles that poor people have to go through. And during the examples that I gave when I was comparing what happened over there in that massacre, I compared it with what happened during dictatorships in here, and even nowadays. In Brazil, the president has been killing natives in the Amazon who try to protect the rainforest.
Yeah.
In Bolivia, there were, was it Bolivia or was it Colombia? I think it was in Colombia. They were protesting recently because of some, no, it was Bolivia. Yeah, they were protesting about some taxes that they are going to have on food, and police opened fire against them by order of the president. In Chile, some natives, they lost their land. They are trying to get it back, and they have been killed by policemen apparently. In Bolivia, there was, now I remember. Colombia was where people fighting because of the taxes, and in Bolivia there was a coup d'état against the president, and natives loved him because he protected them a lot. So when they went to protest, they were shot by policemen as well. So I think it happens everywhere that people in power just want to get rid of either poor people or people from I can't even say other races, because in here we're all mixed. So specific groups, they target specific groups, they make them victims, and then they say, hey, you do nothing because, I don't know, you're poor because you want to be poor. It's awful how many times I've heard that. And guys, I have to say, you mentioned something about being leftists over there. Trust me, for us, you're all right. It doesn't matter. Trump is extreme right, the rest of you are just right, and that's it.
That's a good way to contrast, like the way our different cultures kind of view each other, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So, I know Johnny had one more thing that he wanted to say really quick.
There's a lot that could be said. I kind of want Mateo to come in here and in the future, on future episodes, sort of wrangling him right now, to come in on the show and cover. Now that I've got him on the air, he has to say yes, because if he says no, then everyone's going to hate him forever. But will you come on the show every so often and give us like special news from Latin America and what's going on there? Will you do that? Will you say yes?
My secret is that I really want to do that. So yes,
right,
of course, totally. I will be here in future, people.
Okay, I want on all those episodes. Just mark me as yes for those episodes. No.
Yeah, you sound
yes.
So much puck now, Laura. You're trying to claim all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to claim all the episodes.
But I do want to kind of as many as I can. No, but I do want to do a similar shout out to Teo, not just because of what he brings in terms of what's going on in South America, but the unique perspective that he brings about the United States of America and how we're kind of viewed from the outside, so to speak. That is a really important perspective to have.
That's going to be, it's going to be interesting for you, because I do have a lot of opinions, because I've seen a lot of things over there that I look at them and it's, wow, and you are the advanced society people? I don't have very good news for you. Sorry.
Teo, you should have a conversation with my immigrant Jamaican mother. Johnny?
Let me say this. We were going to talk about Loving versus Virginia. And you know what? I thought, I mean, if we constrict the coverage of these things, we can cover all these interesting topics, these difficult pills to swallow. But I was wrong again. But let me just do a quick thing on Loving versus Virginia. There's been a lot of fantastic coverage of this. There's a movie. But I recommend that you go ahead and go to www.oyez.org, which is the Supreme Court's official website, and learn all about Loving versus Virginia. 1958, 2 residents of Virginia, Mildred Jeter, a black woman, and Richard Loving, a white man, were married in D.C. They returned to Virginia. They were charged with violating the state's anti-miscegenation statute, which banned interracial marriages. They were found guilty and sentenced to a year in jail. And the judge agreed to suspend the sentence if the Lovings agreed to leave Virginia and not return for 25 years. The U.S. Supreme Court found that to be a violation, Virginia's law to be a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment in a unanimous decision. And it took that long, 1958 and then some. But read the opinion. Actually, I think it's 1966. Read the opinion. It's actually very well written. This is what our country was dealing with within our parents' lifetime. This is fresh news.
I was going to say 1958 is not ancient history, people.
No, it's not. It's not a long time ago.
We need to remember. Yeah.
And
Marty McFly.
That's the thing that I also before you go, Johnny, I also hear like these really bad arguments about, slavery was a long time ago, Jim Crow was a long time ago, these particular acts were a long time ago. No, they weren't. No. I mean, like slavery was like was abolished like approximately 155 years ago. Slavery actually lasted for almost 250 years. It was abolished less time than it was enacted, and that's only like about maybe like a couple grandparents ago.
Harriet Tubman was alive when Ronald Reagan was alive. I think I saw that recently. That's true. Yeah, put that in your past and smoke it. It's recent history, and people are still living with the consequences. Do you think that when, let's say, Istanbul became Constantinople, that it was just done? No, there were long-lasting, generation-length conflicts and taking away of rights and property and stuff like that. And that was in ancient ass times. This is within our parents' lifetime, right? I speak for my parents, at least.
Mine too.
Yeah. So we got to keep, we established that before the show. Very close. It's not done. We have a role to play in how this all plays out in the history books. Right? It's not just, I marched with Martin Luther King. Well, good for you. What did you do in 2021 when people were trying to take people's rights away? Did you just say, it's these people with their Black Lives Matter? I just don't understand why they have to be. Well, why don't you understand? Why are we making
such a big deal out of this?
Yeah, go understand. Go find out. Read a book.
Right. Talk to somebody who's different from you. How about that?
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of formulating opinions on different things that you don't have, you have like not even like a clue of what it really is.
Guys, this is one of those topics that is surprising for me because I had to learn about those things through movies. Here we are all mixed, so that idea of laws not letting you marry whoever you want. I mean, we do have that with same-sex couples, but in heterosexual couples, I didn't learn about this type of discrimination until I saw some American movies. Movies from the USA.
See, Teo brings up a really good point because he was saying that, like in South American countries where they still don't have, like where homosexuals can get married. I'm sorry,
in Argentina,
in Argentina, just recently.
Very recently, I have to say.
So we talk in terms of like it's shocking that we used to have these laws that interracial marriage wasn't okay. Like there's countries today where people can't get married.
Yeah.
Right. So this is not really a thing of the past. I mean, it may change flavors or colors or who can get married to who might change, but it's still an issue today where people are being persecuted and killed and imprisoned over who they want to marry.
Just because they want to be with the person that they want to be with.
They love. Yeah.
Same discrimination, different name.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. You put it so much more succinctly.
And I will blame religion on that as well, because that's where most of hatred comes from, according to me. I'm kind of obsessed with that. People have told me that, I believe most harm comes from religion. Well,
I'll give a little bit of pushback because religion is a cultural tool that we use. And so it's always it always comes down to being a human problem. And when humans interject it into religion, that just becomes one more tool that we use to cause these.
That part, Laura, when you interject religion into these particular spaces is when it becomes problematic to the point where people are oppressed.
When
That's a
religions are
problem.
the ones making the laws.
When you need a justification for it and you use God as the ultimate justification, it's just that much
Correct.
difficult.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I really do.
Well-
I do think it's both. It's the snake eating its own tail.
I'm
The
pretty sure-
religion. Well, you hear about these people like, oh, I can't accept X because my religion tells me that it's wrong,
Right.
and then other people that say, you know, the religion formed because of racism in the beginning. It's like it's a snake eating its own tail, and by pulling apart one side of it, the religion side, you get part of the way there, but then you've got to deal with it. I think the tribalism and the
You still have
otherness
human
too.
nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
all
so
the isms.
yeah.
I want
The-
to
the-
take. I want to mention that we are on the Diversity Month, and I'm pretty sure that most of the hatred that comes from to homosexuals and others, sorry, I don't remember, but to homosexuals mostly, comes from religion, because homosexuality is too common in the animal kingdom to have our brain deciding, oh no, this is bad. No, it's not. Religion told us that it's bad, and that's why we as a society always reject homosexual. I think that's only due to religion.
I think it's a compelling statement to make, and there's a lot that I have to say on that. Unfortunately, we are right at the end of our show, and we have to wrap up. So I'll leave you with that point. I'll say that there's points that I disagree with on that, but there's also points where I do agree. But we really do need to wrap up because we just got a few short minutes left. So just to kind of recount, we went over today. We talked earlier. Excuse me, I have like a cold, so I'm getting a little bit choked up. But we talked about South America and some of the discrimination faced there. We've talked about North America, specifically the United States, and discrimination faced there.
Mexico.
And I think the one thing we conclude, we kind of left Central America sort of out of it, but they've got problems too.
We covered. Was that Honduras and El Salvador?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Mexico.
You did. Yeah,
we're cool.
correction. Yeah.
We got all the Americas.
I think if there's anything that we can sum up from today's episode, it's that these issues are still ongoing and they're still developing, and we can't forget the history of them. We can't also forget that it's still going on today. So thank you guys, everybody, for watching. Do you guys, any of the three of you, have any closing statements before we say ta-ta?
I do. Sorry, Angel. Let me try to finish this. History is written by the winners, and we cannot let it defeat us, because I was going to mention all the dictatorship that South America has been going through, and always the winners denied that there was a dictatorship. Oh, it's a type of government. No, it was dictatorship, and you're just trying to avoid it.
Yes. I will say this. Thank you for calling me Angel. Again, my point is that we like and subscribe, and send us emails and send us comments and do all those things that we like so much. We live off of your good vibes and some of your bad vibes too. But we have a role to play in all of this, right? We're not static bystanders to history. We're active participants. So
absolutely
do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do it. And on the count of three, do we want to say it, Laura?
Absolutely.
1,
Ready?
2, 3.
Happy
Juneteenth.
I didn't mess up. Woohoo!
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Leave your comments below. Don't forget, everything's in the description below if you have any questions. And that's it. Bye, guys.
Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Don't forget it, please.
Yes.
Ciao.